hoping that I hit record after we said all of this stuff. I could get us sued or at least blacklisted in certain circles. Cash flow is dead. Nothing cash flows. For 3 years plus, you've been hearing that the crash is coming. The only way you can buy is if prices come down 20 or 30%, or if interest rates continue to drop. But since neither of those things have happened, there is no way to cash flow. So what do you do? I know what I'm doing. I'm going to talk about that today. But here on my channel, I have Millennial Mike, who is investing in a unique way. It's one of the reasons why I like to have you on the channel, is because I'm the lazy investor. I invest close to where I'm at. I self-manage with systems that make it very simple. So I'm spending only a couple of hours a month to manage my 18 units. But I'm in a high cost of living area. And so are you. So you invested out of state after house hacking, right? Because the more expensive the area you live in, the more impactful house hacking can be. But in 2023, we didn't see the crash that people have been screaming about for years. We haven't seen interest rates come down. And recently the Fed said, hey, we're probably not going to raise anymore. But that doesn't mean they're going down. And that doesn't mean that lending fear is becoming less, so that we're going to see a rate compression to see our rates come down. What do you do, Mike, when nothing cash flows? You just give up.
Well, I mean, you could just give up, or you could fall for what some of these big time gurus are saying, which is dump all your money in a syndication with me because I'll go out there and find the cash flow. Why would you want to get started investing in real estate when you could just partner with me and the brand that I've built over the last decade that's trustworthy and, you know, a household name at this point? Give me your money. Now, there's a lot of different things that you can do to still get cash flow. But the point that I want to make starting off is one of the first things that prompted me to move to look in the Midwest was the fact that there wasn't as good of cash flowing properties, I thought, out here in the Seattle area. And I still kind of really maintain that there isn't, unless you're doing the house hack method. If you're putting 20% down on a $900,000 duplex, it's pretty tough to have a cash on cash return and cash flow. But I think it's important that people understand that you need to get creative. There's so many different ways to still get cash flow. But if you're looking at real estate through the lens that most people have been looking at for the last 12 years, which is I buy the property with a traditionally financed loan and 20% down, I have a reasonable monthly payment, and then I have what the property will rent for, the income minus the expenses, and I have a little bit of cash flow left over. That formula worked for a while, but it's not working right now. So what do you do to mitigate the situation? Well, there's value add, there's better negotiation, there's getting deals through wholesalers, there's creative financing, there's seller financing, and we can break all of those down one by one. But ultimately, what you have to understand is that just like with damn near everything in life, you need to adapt the Bear Grylls philosophy of improvising, adapting, and overcoming. Strategies that have worked in the past, like graduating high school and getting a pension, don't work today for retirement. Strategies that worked with real estate investing in the past, like buying on traditional financing, aren't working right now. They may work again in the future. They may never come back. But you need to understand that it's still your job to figure out how to improvise, adapt, and overcome the situation and move forward and create cash flow. Because if you fall for the forget about cash flow, just worry about appreciation. That'll be the good thing in the long run. You're going to set yourself up for some failure.
So I believe in the next week or two, I'm going to be making a video. Nothing cash flows. Who's buying? Right? We see properties selling all the time. They get listed on the MLS. They get sold. We see the new price. We think that doesn't make sense. Why would they buy that? People forget that our biggest competition as investors are home buyers. And home buyers don't buy based on yield, cash on cash return. They buy based on payment. And yes, when property values are high and interest rates are high, the family that wants the 4 or 5 bedroom house might not get their $800,000 house. They might buy the $600,000 3 bedroom. Then they have the kids share bedrooms longer. So you can downsize what you're buying to keep it within your payment range, even though it wouldn't be a good yield, wouldn't make a good rental. That's the lens we see it through. Then there's people who are redeploying money from a 1031 exchange. So in their head, they're only seeing their initial down payment that they put in to play 5 or 10 years ago, $20,000 or $30,000 to buy the $1 million fourplex now, because they're redeploying the funds from all of the appreciation and principal pay down that they've experienced. Again, not focusing on the yield that it would take us to take our new money and put it to work in that property. They're deploying the appreciation in the property as their down payment. Here's how I found cash flowing deals in a market with high prices and high rates. Michael Zuber talked about it in his daily update this morning. He said he was watching a Grant Cardone interview, and Grant Cardone was saying on these big syndications, there's a property that had a certain valuation, it lost a bunch of value, so they're going to buy it with cash. And since it's not a loan, they don't have a hard timeline. That was my paraphrased version of a cloned version of what Grant originally said. But I did a version of that, and a lot of people can do a version of that. Frank and Cynthia, they're buying properties all cash, out of state, $60,000, $70,000, getting a 10 or 20% cash on cash return, cash flowing $300 or $400 a month on that rental, and not being tied to interest rates, keeping the bank out of the equation. What I did is I have my area that I search, and I, over a decade, was buying cash flowing deals right from the MLS with conventional loans. So the mantra that I see a lot of people saying is the only way you can buy when interest rates are high is to seller finance. I haven't seller financed anything. It's an option. Sometimes it's better. Sometimes if you see it listed on the MLS with seller financing, it's because that person has some really bad terms that nobody should buy the property with as an option. I looked at my market and I knew my rents, I knew my prices, I knew the areas to avoid. And what happened in the last 3 years is that at a greater rate than at any point in time in my entire life, remote work is possible. So I expanded my market out because commuters are able to travel further since they only have to go to work once or twice a week instead of 5 days a week. But they don't want to buy. We see a lot of companies like Elon Musk saying, yep, come back to the office or you're fired. Amazon going, hey, come back to the office or you're fired. And people don't want to be fired. I do have a friend who was told, come back to the office or you're fired. And she said, fine, I retire. And she quit. Power of owning rentals. It's beautiful.
Man, I wonder who that was. She sounds smart.
She does sound smart. She actually bought a deal that is better than my last one. But so they don't want to buy because they might get called back to the office. So it pushed up demand for rents further out. Not where my rentals originally were, because that was the normal commuting distance. Nothing's really changed in that market. But I went out and I expanded my drive time about 30 minutes. I found 11 new markets. Most of them didn't make sense, but 2 of them I was able to find cash flowing deals. And then I combined it with Grant Cardone's theory of if you buy this and you use cash, the banks aren't a part of the equation. The interest rate doesn't matter. And it's my own money. So I purchased a place all cash and I'm doing my first BRRRR. Kind of like the experience you had where you started 2 BRRRRs. You waited till you had your portfolio in place. You had the cash flow to support when things go wrong, because they often do. And then interest rates doubled on you in the 6 months where you're doing your BRRRRs. I started my BRRRR and I don't have a timeline. I'm not using hard money. I'm not using a construction loan where I've got to find a contractor that's willing to work with. Can you hear the demon screaming in the background?
Children.
I'm traveling. I don't travel well when there's kids around me. Also, if you're in Texas, tell me things to do in San Antonio that you think would be fun to do. Here for a few days. I found a property where prices haven't been pushed up because people can't buy because the remote work might be canceled, but they do want to rent. So rents were driven up. So I was able to find my cash flowing deal. Then I added buying a place cash. I might refinance out at the end. Interest rates will determine if I do or how much of a loan to value that I do. You have a lot of different options that don't involve getting on the REIT wheel, don't get involved with syndications. How many syndications have we seen in the last few years that are going to have problems in the next couple of years because they were projecting rent increases like we saw 2 years in a row, bigger rent increases than we saw in a decade, saying, when these continue, our syndication will be fine. Don't fall for it. There are options. Cash flow doesn't ever die. It changes, right? It's one of the first few rules in science, right? Nothing is ever created or destroyed. It just changes. That's the same thing with cash flow. It's still out there. You might have to adjust your strategy. You might have to adjust your market or asset class or the way you find your funds. The reason the thumbnail says cash flow from forever until 2023 is dead is because think of anybody that bought a property at any point in time in the past. 2008 prices, peak of the market, just before it's a 30% crash that took 4 years to happen, right? It didn't happen in 1 year, it took 4 years to go through. These people that bought in 2008 and still have their property, wouldn't you like to have their cash flow? There wasn't a point in time in the past where buying would mean that you wouldn't be cash flowing now, especially if you bought it 30 years ago and your mortgage is now paid off, no matter what the interest rate was or what the purchase price was, because now it's paid off. Yes, cash flow is hard to find and create in a short period of time, but add the element of time. The reason we are here today, and I see a comment, this is, what are we doing up so early? I'm sorry, I'm traveling, I'm in San Antonio, look at my eyes. This is early because it's about time to go to bed. It's not time to wake up. We're here today because Matt, the Lumberjack Landlord, does his live streams on Sunday mornings, 8:30, and you can find his channel here on YouTube, Lumberjack Landlord. And today he is in the One Rental at a Time boot camp, sharing his knowledge there. So we thought we'd fill in with a live stream for the people who wake up, because I know that I wake up on Fridays and Saturdays at 7:30 in the morning, and I'm like, where's Zuber? Where's my daily update? So if you had all week to wait for Matt to be here today, where are your terrible substitute teachers?
So Dion, I wrote down 10 different things that 10 different strategies people can use to still find cash flow in 2023 and 2024 and moving forward. And I don't know if we have time to talk about all 10 of them, maybe, but I figured I'd at least list them off. And then in the comment section, if people want to tell us what they want us to focus on. So I'm gonna list them off real quick. They're in no particular order, but we've got seller financing, creative financing, short-term and medium-term rentals, cheaper purchase price, working with wholesalers, doing a value-add project, conversion, moving out of your local market and looking at different markets, buying with all cash, and number 10, waiting long enough, AKA the math of time. Just a Dionism. Those are the 10 that I have so far that just I myself have done. So if you want to talk about any of those 10, or if you have some more, let us know in the comment section which topic you want us to cover, because there's a lot of ways to make those topics make your cash flow better or still get cash flow.
Well, you pointed out the actual biggest impact to my strategy shift that I've done in the last year was the lower price, right? So for the last decade, almost all of the investments that I made, speed was one of the most important factors. My agents and my lenders knew that when I found a deal that I liked, they had less than an hour to respond to me, having the offer ready to be DocuSign submitted and having my letter of pre-qualification with the amount of my offer back from the lender within an hour, maybe two, or I was going on to the next agent or lender, because I wanted an offer in before the seller realized they were going to get inundated with multiple offers, maybe over asking, waiving contingencies. That's not the case anymore. What shifted now is the math of time. I am watching days on market. And when a property sits on the MLS 3 or 4 times longer than normal, I make an offer that pretty much ignores 2 things. And this new one came from a question that came yesterday. The first thing it ignores is the list price. That was a number that mattered to the seller at some point, but it's been so much time. Now, either they're not going to sell no matter what the price is, or they're motivated and scared because they didn't get the offers they were looking for. But the second thing it ignores is comps. I actually don't care what other houses in the area have sold for. I'm looking for that seller that has to sell, and my price is going to be the one that sticks. So the most recent one I got was on the market over 100 days. Another one that I made an offer and got it accepted was on the market for over 100 days. I actually passed that on to Frank since I passed on it, and it made sense to me, but it didn't make sense to him because he would have to include property management, and that kind of killed the numbers just enough for him to not make it worth pursuing. Both of those are on the MLS. Everyone had access to them. I see, howdy everybody. See a bunch of people jumping in here. I see Dividend Dave saying bludgeon that like button. Appreciate that. G says in Canada, as we call it here, people are still paying over list. In several markets in the US, they are. 37% of offers were made over asking. I think it was the recent Redfin statistic I saw, which means almost 2/3 are at or below asking, right? But still a third. So some markets are up, some markets are down. It's better not to get emotional over this. No house is better than one you got with a check every month for. Exactly. I see a super chat. And Josh Burdick, howdy. Appreciate that. Appreciate the support. I'm looking through, did make sure I don't miss a question from him, Mike, if you see one. Sometimes not there, so just the support. Appreciate it. You should check out the basement of the Alamo. Pee Wee said it's great. I thought that was some theater that he liked. I was so I went to the Alamo last time driving through San Antonio, but we were only here for like 5 hours, and I was extremely disappointed. Right, I'm a Gen X. I grew up with all the Western songs of the Alamo, and I'm picturing ruins in the middle of the desert where you could picture an epic battle. Not 2 blocks from McDonald's. And a 37-story skyscraper. Like every picture you see of the Alamo is an angle down, so you just see the Alamo because you can't see that it's in the middle of a city. Not what I was expecting.
I'm picturing Davy Crockett fighting.
Yeah, exactly. Bowie was there, right? And so, network, bruh. I bought an alligator half duplex in 2007 and had to short sale in 2012. Yeah, a lot of people. First, alligator at any point in time is not something you want to pursue. And then if you were like me in 2007, when you had that, you probably might have possibly had an adjustable rate mortgage, because I did. 51% of the people that own mortgages in the US in 2007 had adjustable rate mortgages. Then you add no appreciation, loss in value, and the new rates hit. There were a lot of people in your same situation. I probably would have let my house go. I probably would have been one of those people that did a strategic default, except I kept the house in the divorce. So some petty little part of my brain was like, nope, you will find a way. Dividend Dave says short-term rental, midterm rental. I think midterm rental is a great option. Mike, you're doing short-term rental on your duplex now. You've got that 90s themed other half of your duplex, which if you want to give us really quick, how did that first month go?
Yeah, I mean, if anybody wants the full breakdown of, how many viewings my listing got, what my booking rate was, how much money I made, what my cleaning fees were, I did an entire breakdown analyzing all of that. It's on my channel right now. It's called My First Month as an Airbnb host. So check that video out. But yeah, so for reference, my other unit, the other unit over there was making $2,150 a month with a long-term rental. My first month on Airbnb, I made $2,840. So it's about a $700 increase on my first month. I'm not a super host. The property was listed September 30th, and the month I'm talking about is the month of October. So there was no opportunity for people to book dates out in advance. Many people booked last minute at a discounted price. Whereas for the month of November and December, I already have a lot of days booked. So I was able to make an extra $700 with all of these things working against me just by converting to a short-term rental. In the video, I talk about the reviews and my interactions with the tenants and those types of things, or the people that are staying there. But yeah, I think converting to a short-term rental is something people have been doing for a number of years, because if your long-term rental can make $2,000 a month and your short-term rental can make $3,500 a month, well, it's a little easier to make some of these properties cash flow, especially in the more expensive neighborhoods. Now, the downside is that if you convert your property to an Airbnb in a market that doesn't need any more Airbnbs, or only uses Airbnbs if the economy is good, well, that might be a really dumb thing to do. But if you're in an area like I am, right next to the lake, near the base of Mount Rainier, a beautiful tourist location here in Washington, 45 minutes from Seattle, 20 minutes from Tacoma, there's no hotels in the entire city. There's not a single hotel in the city I live in. It's a popular wedding destination. If you fit some of these different categories that I just mentioned, well, then there might be an opportunity for you to say the deal does not cash flow at $2,000 a month in rent, but it does cash flow at $3,500 a month in passive income from an Airbnb. Well, maybe I can make this new interest rate work. Maybe I can do this, and you could still get into some real estate. So I encourage people, as one of the topics that I listed off, short-term rentals and midterm rentals are one of the options to still get cash flow today.
Yep, totally agree. And then I think midterm is a good option for those areas where the municipalities say no more short term. You're still signing a lease. It's still no different. Matt says, bet you can find rentals and cash flowing deals in San Antonio. My nephew is moving here. That's actually why I'm here. One of the reasons I drove a car down for him. Cool things about being retired is you can just take off and go wherever you want, whenever you want. So I'm not sure where I'm headed to after this, but I hear a lot of people say, be really careful of the taxes in Texas because they reset every year. Well, so do they in Washington. So know what your taxes are. Contact your county tax assessor and figure out what metric they use, because a lot of times people will look at the listing on the MLS and they'll get sticker shock the first time they get their actual tax bill. Because when you purchase a property, you create a factual event of what a seller and a buyer thought that property was worth, giving the county tax assessor a new metric to base your taxes on. So yeah, it's going to change. It's part of the thing. And it really sucks because you know who pays property taxes? Tenants. That's not something that we end up paying. Network sellers finance. How do I convince sellers agents to accept sellers finance? Either sellers or their agents have no idea what it is and quickly decline. A lot of agents will quickly decline because they think you're trying to be as cheap as you possibly can, which means you're going to try to not pay their commission. So one of our jobs as an investor when we approach a deal as seller finance, if there are agents involved, is to clearly communicate our intent to make sure they get paid. Once they realize, oh, they're still trying to pay me, they might be more positive to the seller because they want to close the deal. But if they think even subconsciously that you're trying to get out of paying their thing or going to try to talk down their commission, they will say exactly what the seller needs to hear to think either it's illegal or you're a scam artist or it's not a good offer. And then with the seller, we're not in the convincing business. So the first thing we have to do is make sure that it's a deal where seller financing will work. Right? If they refinanced and pulled all their equity out last year, they don't have enough equity to seller finance anything. So then you're talking about subject to. Subject to worked great for the last 10 years because prices were trending up and interest rates were trending down. So a lender would sit back and not care if somebody else took over the mortgage, because if you were to get a new mortgage, it would be at a lower interest rate. Well, now interest rates are trending higher. So if you're looking at a subject to where somebody has a 3% interest rate, the lender might call the loan, because now if they call the loan and you go to refinance, you're looking at 6 or 7%. So they can double their interest that they're getting by calling the loan. So subject to is a completely different thing than seller financing. So you need to make sure they have enough equity for it to make sense. If it's a completely paid off property, you have a better leg to stand on. If it's got a little bit of a mortgage left, your down payment can cover the agent fees and what mortgage is left. If they have more mortgage left, you can look at something like the 50-40-10 model, where you're bringing 10% to the table to keep the lender happy, but the lender is doing a 50% loan to value or less, because that gets you your best lender interest rate. Then the seller can carry the other 40%. Some agents are put off by the term seller carry. So what you want to do is make sure that they know you are creating a financial note, like a mortgage that they own, that goes to their heirs, that they can sell if they want the money sooner. If you take my binder course, which you can find at diontalk.com, it's free, right? This is a free course, teaches how to get your tenants to ask you to raise the rent. Inside that course is my seller finance letter, which includes all of the bullet points that can benefit the seller, because you don't want to go to them and say, I really want to do this because this is how I benefit. I get a better interest rate. I don't have my credit checked. I don't need to have a big down payment in some cases. You're pointing out, maybe you don't want a big capital gains hit all at once. I'd rather pay interest to you than to a lender. How would you like to get consistent payments without dealing with tenants, toilets, and termites? So if you want that, it's in there for free. And also my Excel spreadsheet on tracking income and expenses with my portfolio is there for free too. Seller financing, Mike, thoughts?
So I've done multiple seller financing deals. I just closed on one a couple of weeks ago. Most people already are familiar enough with seller financing to understand why it's important, to understand why it will help work and to get you cash flow now versus, traditional financing. But the question that everybody has over and over again is, how do I actually get it? How do I convince people? And as Network Bruh said right here, God dang it, freaking live streams doing ads now kills me. It took the live chat away. Where'd it go? As Network Bruh had said, he goes, how do I convince the sellers and the agents to accept seller financing? Dude, that sounds like a lot of work. What if there was someone else who could convince them for you? I don't know. Who is constantly calling people and suggesting that they sell their house at dirt cheap prices? Who's out there already putting advertising up on street corners and signs and billboards and calling people and sending letters? wholesalers are. Wholesalers are already reaching out to people and trying to get them to sell their house at significantly under market value. They want to do things like get people to sell their house at 20% on the dollar or 50%. And a lot of people now, because of the internet, can say, well, the value of my house, according to Zillow, which is wrong, but the value of my house, according to Zillow, is way more than what you're offering me, Mr. Wholesaler Pound Sand. One of the tools that wholesalers are starting to incorporate is offering seller financing. Instead of me, the wholesaler, going to the buyer and saying, I'll buy your house for 50% off, what if I said, I'll buy your house for 25% off or 30% off if you're willing to sell it on terms, on seller financing? And so the wholesaler, if you partner with these wholesalers, if you start contacting all the wholesalers in your market and educating them on the tool of seller financing and say to them, hey, if you're talking with someone who wants to sell his house, but you can't wrap it up under an assignment contract for a cheap enough price for it to make sense, what if we did a seller financing assignment contract instead? Some people are calling it a mortgage wrap. Some people are calling it seller finance assignment contract. This is exactly the deal that I just did. Guy wanted to sell his house for $20,000, but instead, what if we just pay $3,000 down and $400 a month with 0% interest until the house is paid off in the next 4 years? That's the deal that I just got. And the wholesaler was able to talk them into that for me. I didn't even have to directly negotiate with them. So you can, your question, back to your original question, how do you educate sellers? And how do you educate the seller's agent? Seller financing is like a shot in the dark. You offer it to everybody. Okay. This is like the oldest pickup game that there is. You go to the bar, you go to the club, you ask every single girl if they want to go out. Maybe one of them will say yes, right? That works. You might have a conversion rate of 1%. I've talked with Zuber, who's done seller financing deals, and he and I are on the same page. It's like 1 out of 100. Not great odds. But if you got a wingman, if you got a wholesaler as a wingman, you can double team. You get a better chance. And they're already spending so much money to market to the types of people you want to do seller financing with anyways. Why spend all of that yourself? Partner with somebody. If you want more information on that, you guys can reach out to me on Instagram or follow me on YouTube. I won't take all the time of the live to explain it, but trust me, partnering with wholesalers to proposition people with seller financing, that is going to be something that a lot of smart investors do moving forward.
Love it. And I like trying to get a joke into a video because you can't read the audience. You never know. Is this going over right? Is this not?
I mean, I see a bunch of dudes in the chat. So, hopefully they understand.
Go for it, right?
Asking out 100 chicks, hoping for one.
Tightwad says, when you say on the MLS, does that mean the MLS that we see or the MLS that the agent sees? I have never seen the MLS officially, legally, right? We don't see the MLS. We see Redfin, Zillow, Realtor.com. Don't sue me, but those are all crap. I've actually never seen any of the deals that I've purchased on those platforms until a couple of months after I closed, and they showed up as pending. When we see the MLS, what I mean is I have several agents, a minimum of 3 that have auto searches set up. So they have access to their MLS and they see the MLS different than other agents. A Keller Williams agent and a Windermere agent and an EXP agent have different platforms to access the MLS. So I have an email with an exactly copied and paste. Here's my criteria. I want these things, this footprint, this price, this asset class. These are the 3 things I don't want. And I give it to them and I get completely different deals. In a decade, one time I got the same property in less than 24 hours from 2 different agents. So if something sits on the MLS long enough, eventually agents tend to find it. But when speed mattered, I had to have several searches set up because I wanted to know it as soon as it went on the MLS, not when it finally hit the radar of whatever platform. Because it's less, we actually talked about this in the BiggerPockets bootcamp yesterday. There are some people who are from other countries where we have an MLS in the US for now, while the National Association of Realtors still exists before the lawsuit bankrupts them, possibly. But a lot, like in Portugal, an agent has access to their listings at their brokerage. They can't show you what somebody lists at a different brokerage, so you had to go to different agents to see different things. Here, while we have one MLS, we have different portals to access the MLS. So you want different agents with searches set up. So that's what I mean on the MLS.
I disagree with you. So what people don't understand is that the MLS is different for every part of the country. There's actually a bunch of different MLSs all across the country. There's the Pacific Northwest MLS. There's the Midwest MLS. There's a whole bunch. I'm not sure exactly how many there are, but there are a bunch of different MLSs, and not all of them are created equal. So with your problem that you say you never seen a deal you bought pop up on realtor.com or anything like that, it's always on the MLS first. That's not what happens for me out in the Midwest. I've bought all of my deals off of the MLS. But when I say MLS, I mean I was looking at realtor.com on a daily basis. And listings aren't coming to realtor.com 30 days after they came to the MLS. They're popping up the exact same day. And so I've found, I think, 5 deals off the MLS directly that I've purchased, and I'm the one who found it. And a couple of them was the day it was listed. I found it, called the listing agent or got my agent over there. So Dion's probably right about here in the Pacific Northwest, but just because our MLS sucks doesn't mean where you live it might be crap. So I check realtor.com all the time. I see new deals come on every single day, and I bought a lot of different houses off of it. So I would absolutely recommend that. Yes, you get the agent setting up searches, but the 3 houses I've bought the day they listed wasn't because an agent sent it to me. It was because I was looking every day. I found it. I sent it to them and swooped in back when time really mattered.
How many agents do you have with auto searches set up now?
None, because I'm not looking for anything right now. And
that's my fear too. So I want to do the members only live streams where we look at deals, right? And I'm hoping that I have Wi-Fi tonight because I'm switching hotels, because the True Hyatt in San Antonio is a crap hole. Official review stated. Sometimes you don't get what you pay for. But so if I have Wi-Fi tonight at 6 p.m. Pacific, I'm planning on doing a members only. But my fear is I'm going to look at deals and be like, oh, that's a great deal. I better get an offer submitted, because I don't want to buy right now. I see Dividend Dave says, thank you for having a sense of humor, David, not being offended by the way that I put the entire Southeast together. Real estate opportunities are great here in North Louisiana, because, yeah. I went to school in America. They don't teach us geography. Angel,
that's not true.
Where I went, they didn't.
You didn't have the map as a kid where you had to label all the states and put the state capitals on it?
No.
Oh,
That's
okay.
kids might have done that. With me, they're like, oh, you showed up. That's good. Congratulations for your participation trophy. How do you handle long-term tenants who are responsible for but rude in nature? I'm considering outsourcing repairs to minimize direct interactions. I'm going to quote Richard Branson, creator of Virgin Airlines. It is better to have a hole on your team than an a-hole on your team. I had amazing employees at the truck driving school that I worked at. Great work ethic, showed up on time, did their work. Attention to detail was great. Personality didn't mix. Fired, gone, didn't hesitate. You have a personality conflict with a tenant, that's the last day they're a tenant. What they are from that day on is the person you need to get rid of to have an empty property to put a tenant in that you get along with. I would take the financial hit of a month or 2 and possibly an eviction to get rid of a tenant that I don't get along with. This is not a customer service business. We are providing a place for people to live. We maintain it. I have my 3 criteria: safe, clean, functional. But then on the other end of that is they can't be jerks too. So that's my personal opinion. Your business model might not be able to handle what it takes to get rid of a tenant who is prompt, pays on time. But if they're hard to deal with, or even if they're hard to deal with your handyman, if you send a handyman there, and so I sent a handyman to a friend. Like I referred a different guy than I've referred to you, Mike. That guy is working for me right now. I don't know why he didn't know for you, but I warned you. I said, great work, bad schedule. I have another handyman that I met. Great work. I referred him to a friend. He went and met with my friend. My friend was the jerk. So that friend will never get any more referrals from me. Right? They just won't. I'm not going to set my handyman there. If I will cut a friend out of dealing with my handyman, I will definitely cut tenants that don't get along with my handyman out of the picture. So that's how I would do it, Angel. I might have a couple of conversations clarifying. I have had a young couple who thought absolutely every issue that they're going to have at their house is a call to landlord issue. So I had a Dion talk and I said, here's the 3 words that involve you calling me. And I'm probably the second call because you should be calling 911 first. And have the education of this is a you problem, this is a me problem. It seems like your parents didn't educate you on what it's like to be an adult. I was that clear and transparent. And I said, this this is something you should fix. Now, if it breaks or something, then it's a me problem. But yeah, sometimes we just have to have that conversation. I see we have a super chat from Dividend Dave popping up. Dion to buy a globe or map and finally get my state name right. You've seen the maps at my place. I could tell everybody where the Sylvanesti, the Qualinesti, where Ancelon is. I can't tell you what states are. It's not going to happen.
Hey, a question did come in from Josh Burdick, by the way, who super chat earlier. He says, when you find a property on your own, do you like using the listing agent or do you always bring in your agent?
So I think I have two answers here. For most people, when you're starting out, I think you should approach the listing agent and say, I see you have this listing. I would like to possibly submit an offer. As long as you have the confidence to know your market and know what your contingencies are and be able to look at your offer to make sure that they're in there. Because remember, the listing agent works for the seller, not for you, right? So it's kind of a conflict there. But you have a better chance of having your offer be presented stronger by the listing agent because they can get, from what I've heard, it's like almost the whole commission. There's a part of it that they don't get. Personally, when I have found deals, I have contacted my agent that I know is good. I've got several with searches set up, but there's one who's spot on, contacts the county, checks for issues, looks at all the surveys, does all this background work without me having to do anything. I've roped him into 2 deals that I found and happy to have him make the commission. I don't know that everyone should do that because maybe your agent isn't as amazing as this. So if you live in the Pierce, Thurston County, Washington, and you need an agent referral, I've got a guy I will send to you because his work is that good. So good that it was going to cost me the same. It's not like you call the listing agent and say, hey, can you lower your commission and save me money to do this, right? I would rather have my agent on my side of the boxing ring that's not just against the agent, but is also going to do things like look for surveys on the property. The last place I purchased, in front of me, he finds one from 2007 and said, hey, there was a survey done here on the border. It's not really clear what it is. So he makes the call on speaker in front of me, gets a hold of the county, goes through like 3 people to get to the right person, finds out what it is, finds out that there's a variance because the retaining wall on the neighbor's yard comes into mine like 1.5 feet. So that verified that it wasn't my building that didn't meet the setbacks or something, that I was going to have a big expense. That's work I don't want to have to do. So I have got a really good agent, happy to rope them in. If your agent is mediocre and you don't see the real benefit of having them there, and they're not the one bringing you the next deal and the next deal, calling the listing agent wouldn't be a problem for me. Mike, since most of yours, you're calling the agent yourself, I would say.
Yeah, this is a tip that I give to brand new real estate investors that are looking at a new market, especially. I tell them that what they're doing when they're looking at the market every single day, anytime they see any house they're remotely interested in and they want to learn more about, they need to immediately call and track down that listing agent. The reason is there's multiple reasons for it. Number one, this is going to force you to network with new people. You cannot underestimate how impactful knowing more people is to real estate investing. I did not realize that networking was going to play as big a role in my success as it has. And when I had my first conversation with Zuber years ago, it was like his second interview on his channel. And he said 2 things you need to focus on, Mike: networking and seller financing. And I did not understand, and you probably won't until you actually do it and then can look back in hindsight. Everything in life is about who you know. Everything in life, it's nepotism. So you need to know as many people as you can. Building the biggest, baddest, best team you can is how you overcome and accomplish any goal and complete any mission. So talk to every seller's agent that you possibly can, because number one, it's going to force you to network with more people. Number two, you're going to be able to learn how to assess these agents and who knows what they're talking about and who doesn't, because you're going to bring something like, hey, is this seller interested in any type of owner financing? And a bunch of agents are going to say, absolutely not. And a bunch of agents are going to say, I don't know what that is. And a couple of agents are going to say, yeah, we could talk about that. Or this guy isn't, but I do have another pocket listing where they're interested in owner financing, or I may have something coming up that's interested in owner financing. You're going to figure out who is a hard worker, who responds quickly, who wants to go out there and hustle. It's just a fantastic practice to get in the habit of calling the actual listing agent. Lastly, if you're looking at doing seller financing, which you should be, when you do seller financing with a real estate agent, it sucks because you're going to have to work with somebody in between you as the buyer and the seller. You've got this person in the middle that you now have to play the game of telephone with. And if they don't understand owner financing and you're telling them what to say to their guy, are they even saying it? Do they understand it well enough to articulate it properly? Who knows? So if you can wipe that person out and seller finance, buyer, seller, it's much better. But imagine if now you've got the listing agent, let's add to it the buyer's agent. So there's you speaking to the buyer's agent, speaking to the listing agent, now speaking to the seller. It's pretty much guaranteed you're not going to get your message through. It's going to get lost somewhere along the way in translation. So call the listing agent directly. Last point. People have a psychological predisposition to do what benefits them, to root for what's going to benefit them. The listing agent, no matter the fact they have a fiduciary responsibility to their client, if you show up and say, yeah, I'm really interested in this property, oh, okay, fantastic. Yeah, I like the property. I like that. By the way, does the current seller, does the current owner have any problem with you representing me? I don't have an agent representing me on this transaction. If you're willing to, I'd be more than happy to have you write this up for me. And then they'll be like, oh no, there's no problem with that. I'd love to get paid double commission on this. Absolutely, I'd love to get paid double commission. So even if they're supposed to present offers that may be slightly better than yours, if they're getting a double commission off you, they're still going to jazz yours up just a little bit. If it's close, if it's within 10%, you got a better chance of getting yours accepted because they're going to get paid more. So use that human psychology, manipulate people into doing what you want. That's how I get so many girlfriends. That's why I also can't keep them. That's just another joke for you, Dion. I was just joking.
That's good. Dividend Dave has a great answer from Louisiana. This makes sense. He says, you don't ask out 100 girls. You ask out one girl 100 times.
That might border on a crime.
Comes pretty close.
I think I've responded to 911 calls for exactly that. So, but when that happens to me, I just block them. So.
Mark Ashiro from Hawaii, the financial firefighter, says, Mike, will you be taking advantage of the short-term rental loophole to help offset your active income?
Bro, this is like a question that was set up for him to give us an answer. The short-term rental loophole that will offset my active income, I am not sure to what you are referring, my friend. Please let me know.
I think it'd be a good one for him to do a video with you on his channel.
Yeah.
Give you his answer.
And people should follow him. If you don't know, financial firefighter, which fantastic name. Where'd you come up with that? Financial firefighter. You should follow his YouTube channel. He is a real estate agent and long distance investor like me. He lives in Hawaii and invests in Pennsylvania. Straight up squared away guy. He's a firefighter. So that's the only negative thing about him. Don't hold it against him too harshly. Dion and I don't care that much, but it's no big deal.
No, as long as Mark understands why there are cops, right?
Right.
Firemen need heroes too. Dividend Dave says, looking at midterm rentals in my neck of the woods due to great concentration of hospitals in my area. Good point. Yeah. Rob has arrived. I don't see his weekly question. Have you been shot at this week, Mike?
No, not this week.
That's a week. Okay, good. There you go. Gary tells me to go on the Riverwalk. It's all under the roads and away from the traffic. The Riverwalk. So I took a screenshot of that. Thank you, All Nighter Hider, for linking to the binder strategy where you can get the free course to get that seller financing letter. Josh, Riverwalk is nice. We did the boat ride around the Riverwalk and it was nice. Good food there too. Boat ride. I might have to look into that. A couple people like Realtor.com. I know that you should check out the different platforms to know how it works in here. I had a person in Phoenix tell me also Redfin was updated much faster than it is in my market there. And it's the same thing when you go to list a property. For a lot of properties, I used apartments.com. And then now I'm on Hemlane, so it puts on 30 platforms. But I have a friend who we listed on Apartments and Zillow, and the response on Zillow was 3 times what we saw on from apartments.com on her listing. So know what works in your market. Rob says, I got a high quality Southern California education. I did. And Rob asks if you're going to Airbnb your current unit when you find your next house hack that your friend Dion talked you into buying.
Yeah, so that's a good question, Rob. Again, if you watch the video I made on my Airbnb, I break down the fact that even though I'm making more money with a short-term rental over here, I have more expenses because now the tenant's not paying the electrical. The tenant isn't paying the internet charge. The tenant isn't paying the water bill. So there are more expenses that I incur with a short-term rental. So in the video I made, I talk about how really my true break even is about $3,000 a month generated over there. I'll be happy and consider it worth the time, energy, and effort that I put into buying the furniture and furnishing the place and remodeling it and letting it be vacant for a couple months while I did it. I'll consider it a win if I can hit $3,500 a month relatively consistently. I think I'm going to be able to make that. I will consider it an absolute win, and to the point where I want to move out of my current unit and rent out both units if I can hit $4,000 a month in income. Because at the point, I've got a $2,500 mortgage, throw in utilities in there, we'll call it like $3,000. If I can hit $4,000 over there, and then conceivably with an identical duplex on this side, $4,000 on this side, I mean, I'm looking at like $5,000 in straight profit a month at that point. $5,000 in cash flow positive, especially when I also factor in that I could rent the entire building out as one large mansion and maybe even do more than that. I think that there's a good argument to be made that it's worth it for me to get the flip out of here, find another duplex somewhere in this area and do the same thing there that I'm doing here. But I need a little bit more time. I just started this in October, where we've got November and December coming up. Those are heavy travel months. I may not be getting an accurate picture of what this thing will produce in cash flow. I want to see how January, February, and March do. So we'll see. But at the 6-month mark, if you guys are following me, I bring everybody along for my journey. I'm the most transparent YouTuber there is. You see all the numbers that I get, my income, my expenses, all of it. I lay it out for people to get a good idea of what they can expect. 6 months in, I'll be making a decision.
Actually forgot to do that Tuesday. Speaking of transparency, I said I was going to share what my YouTube channel pays, and we signed off without doing that. Network process. So basically it's a numbers game. My realtor hasn't had any luck lately, and he really wants us to lock in seller finance on our next deal. Your agent and your lender are not your mentor. Your agent's job is to lock in deals, to close deals. Your lender's job is to sell loan products. Make sure you're not doing things that benefit them. You're still hunting for the great deal.
It's a network game.
Rob points out a fact. It's not that he can't locate it. He just doesn't care enough to look. Of all of the states in Louisiana, that is true. So I'm here in Texas, and we went to a family restaurant called Twin Peaks, and there was animals everywhere. And I started looking on the phone of what animals are in Texas, and I quickly found about 20 things that would like to eat me. Everything in Texas wants. It's like Australia. It's the Australia of the U.S. Everything here is trying to kill you. Like living in the Northwest. I don't have to worry about it.
Dion, let me read that list one more time, because there's like 40 more people that have joined since I read it the first time.
Okay.
So the point of this live stream is that we're talking about the fact that cash flow has just been destroyed by high interest rate and high prices. And I wrote down 10 different ways that you can still get cash flow in 2023, 2024, and moving forward. And those are: number one, seller financing, creative financing, short-term rental, midterm rental, cheaper purchase price, working with wholesalers, doing value add, doing a conversion, moving and looking out of your market, buying all cash, and then waiting long enough in time. So those are the 10 things that I personally have done to achieve cash flow in a tough market. If you want us to speak on any of those specifically, let us know in the chat, and we will. We've already covered short-term rentals and medium-term rentals and seller financing and creative financing. But if you want us to talk on any of those other topics, let us know. All right, sorry, Dion, back to you.
No, I appreciate it. And I see that Ninja Vanish gifted a membership to John L. So welcome to the group, John L.
That's cool.
Members only live streams happen twice a month at least, usually on a Saturday or Sunday. I think we're trying to do them on Sundays now in the evening, where we look at
John. Sorry, John L is my boy. It's random how small world this is. I know this guy.
Nice. Well, maybe he'll see you in one of the next coming members only meetings, where we jump on Zoom. Everybody's on Zoom together, and we look at deals. We look at my market. We look at your market. We look at listings that your agents have sent you, or we could look at a new market. And it kind of gives you that stream of consciousness. How would an investor look at your market? Don't know whether it's a good deal or a bad deal. So I can't say, oh, you should chase that or you should ignore that. But I could tell you, this is what we would look at, and the order we would look at things. And a lot of times when we look at a deal, it does take 10, 15 minutes to process, right? We looked at the type of property, the location, we looked at the good things and the bad things, we looked at the description, we went through the property. to look for possible value adds, go through all of that. It takes 15 seconds when it's you, the investor, not explaining it or not going through it with somebody to do everything that it takes. That's why we do those in members only, is because if we did that here on YouTube, it would kill my channel, I think. And then Taiwan says, sounds like a recurring theme, getting multiples in place. Multiple searches, including your own, multiple lenders, multiple tradespeople. What other multiples am I missing? This is where you insert your multiple dating apps joke, of course. But for me, I think you're right, Tightwad. You need multiples because everything is cyclical. An example is contractors. You have a contractor that has 2 months worth of work lined up. You're going to get really high prices because in order for them to delay work to get to your project, they'd have to be incentivized well enough. But if you find a contractor that doesn't have any work lined up for next week just because of the way that their cycles are, and they've got availability, you might get a better price. It's not because one contractor has better prices all the time and the other one is just more expensive. It's what is the cycle of their current workflow and where do you fall in it? Multiple lenders, same thing. I know Matt, the lumberjack landlord, at his size, wants a lender to have a good relationship with him so they can develop loan products that meet his needs. So he has a good relationship. I don't want my lenders to like me. I want them to actually be a little frustrated because they know that no matter what they offer me in writing, I'm going to show it to 2 or 3 other lenders, give them a chance to beat it, and then bring their better offer back to that first lender and give them a chance to keep my business every single time. Because I'm not looking for a relationship on my conventional loans, those first 10 that you can get in your name. I want the best loan, not the best relationship with a lender. I've never had a lender say, since we've worked together so well, it's not a thing until you have more than 10 conventional loans in your name and you're looking at DSCR loans or asset-based lending or a portfolio type loan that your relationship with the lender can matter. And for me, that's not a point I'm ever actually trying to get to. Ryan Anderson, howdy. I saw an interview Mike did with Jess. Zuber. Okay, thank you. Did with Jess, I think, who invests in Ohio. I think I saw that video. I don't know if I think I watched it. Doing negative cash flow deals now. If that's not a sign of a bubble, then what is? Price will go up. Price of bubbles. Are you doing voice to text? I'm thinking, and your phone doesn't like you. So people buying negative deals. People doing negative deals, negative cash flowing deals is not the sign of a bubble, right? 2008 wasn't a bubble because of prices. It was a bubble because people financed 105% to wrap the closing costs in. We had 51% of the loans were adjustable rate mortgages. People did ninja loans, no income, no job, no assets, right? So you had high prices with a bunch of toxic debt that showed a bubble. Right now, when people say housing is unaffordable, who's buying it? I'll tell you right now, no one knows if housing is affordable or not. Nobody. No one has the data on how much remote work has impacted housing affordability because they take the average income in an area and the average home price in an area, or the median income and the median home price, and they say, this is how many people can do it. We're 2 or 3 years away from knowing the remote work that happened in 2021. Right? We're years from it, but we're years still from knowing the data on the remote work that happened there, on who could afford housing. The housing affordability index is broken because it has a flawed data metric now that it's never had before. More remote work than at any point in time. So is housing affordable? No one knows. Is it in a bubble? As soon as we see things that could cause a massive surge in supply, sure, it can be a bubble, but show me where that's coming from. Right? We had an eviction moratorium. Nobody had to pay their rent. And you couldn't evict them. 1% of the people that went into forbearance entered foreclosure. The average foreclosure length is 1,200 days. So we're looking at 4 years from when forbearance ends to have that impact supply. And it was 1% of the people who went into forbearance. The crash bros keep making videos that say, here's why a crash is coming. Every 2 days, here's a new reason. But they're articulate into how this new reason is why. And then if you look at their channels from 6 months ago, a lot of the videos are still there. That's the cool thing. The videos are still there, but they changed the thumbnail. It stopped saying 30% crash by summer. Completely different thumbnail. Doesn't mention 30%. Doesn't mention that the metric is by summer. And I don't want to say who that is, but if you have a mindset for real estate, that might be the channel you find that video disappeared on. That is what is the sign of a bubble, is something that could cause a massive influx of supply, and we don't have it. But here's the other thing that's more important, Brian. And so this is why I think it's a great question. If I had a crystal ball and I absolutely had a factual experience where I went to 2027 and I saw that real estate crashed by 30%, nothing would change in how I'm buying real estate. I'd find the same cash flowing deal today, cash flow until then, buy on the way down, dollar cost averaging real estate, which is not the same as stocks. With stocks, you take a set amount on a schedule to buy. With real estate, you save as much as you can to get your reserves, down payment, closing costs, and money for immediate repairs to grow. And you buy when you find a great deal. That's the dollar cost averaging. Never looking at what do I think will happen with rates? What do I think will happen with prices? What do I think will happen with valuations? None of that tells us when to buy. So even if I knew a crash was coming, wouldn't change how I buy.
So in that question, he talked about the fact that this lady, Jess, is doing negative cash flow deals. And this is a theme that I have heard propagated by BiggerPockets lately. And I'm going to tease a video that I made. It was the second video I've made in recent times that I really wasn't sure I should release or not. And it's me making a video called BiggerPockets Exposed, because I've heard hosts on BiggerPockets say multiple times now, cash flow, don't focus on cash flow. Cash flow isn't that big of a deal. And to put a little bit of icing on the cake, I just got a YouTube notification, and the YouTube notification is from the BiggerPockets podcast channel. And the title of the video that I just got notified on is Why Cash Flow Won't Build Wealth. Hashtag shorts, hashtag BiggerPockets at Meet Kevin. And I watched the video where David Green interviewed Meet Kevin a couple of days ago, and I was blown away by the things that were being said about cash flow. And in my opinion, BiggerPockets is gaslighting their entire audience. So if you want to watch that video, I will release it on my channel. It is probably real estate YouTube Sudoku. I can't say the other S word because you might get banned. I will self-delete my YouTube real estate career by going after BiggerPockets. But you know what? I don't care. I think it's worth it.
One of the biggest challenges in helping people get into anything, real estate, music, whatever you're trying to share with people. And this, I learned this working as a CDL instructor, because as a CDL instructor with 5 campuses, basically every single Monday we had a new class starting at some campus. So every Monday we had 30 to 50 new people who've sometimes never been in a semi, not often, but every now and then someone who had never seen a clutch in their entire life getting into a vehicle and learning. So the instructors, one of the first skill sets the instructors has to nail down is to remember what it's like to not know something. And that's a really hard skill to do. So you'll see a lot of investors who have success talking about making a purchase because of an appreciation play. Meet Kevin is making hundreds of thousands of dollars per month from YouTube. So he can say all kinds of things about real estate, forgetting that it was a 203K rehab loan that got him on the property ladder in the beginning, right? That starting position is what matters. BiggerPockets has courses and books, and I'm a teaching assistant for their BiggerPockets rookie boot camps, right? So it's trying to find the people who can look at what was the beginning like, and what was, if you tell a brand new person starting out, well, you should invest for appreciation, that's kind of stupid. That will add decades to their investing. But if you take somebody who has David Green's portfolio, large cash flow, still large income from his job at BiggerPockets, of course he can make appreciation plays. He can make investments that 5 years or 10 years from now might be a massive increase to his portfolio. Is that how you start? Right? So who's the target audience? It's different when it's how do I start in real estate? That is not appreciation. That is not, what do you call it? Speculation. For me, it is, and since it was my goal, was the right amount of cash flow from the least amount of units. It's still investing for cash flow. So I do see, though, a lot of thumbnails like that. Watch the video, go through and react to what's actually in the video, because sometimes the thumbnail is to get people in. Kind of like when Meet Kevin does a, here's the real estate crash video, and then he has all the metrics to why there's no crash coming. Legacy OPP. Howdy. I finally had to get rid of my best buddy and his wife after 4 years. They pushed me to the point of me telling them next renewal, I'll be asking for full market rent and they can leave anytime. Yeah, I'm with you. If a tenant's not working out, sometimes that's like the other day I got a message from somebody on the, hey, I tried the binder method, but it didn't work. And the tenant left. So my rent went up $700 to market rent. Sometimes the best thing is the tenant leaves, especially in the case like the comment that came up earlier, when you don't get along with the tenant. Wandering Dog, when are you coming to Thailand? Probably middle or end of December. That's when I think I'm headed there. Plan is to be there until February when I leave Thailand and go to Vegas for the one rental at a time event. And so Legacy says, so they left, went back to a 2-bedroom apartment, and I got market rent in 18 days. Yep, sometimes the best thing is for the tenant to get out. And then Network Bruh says, Legacy OPP, never rent to family or friends. This is business, nothing personal. So here's my caveat to that. When you're starting out, don't rent to friends or family. When you are a landlord that has a backbone and a lease that you will stick to, right? I rented to a friend the first year and it was a nightmare because I set up everything wrong. No lease, handshake, let the rent be late, which then became never, right? Then went to talk to him and found out he didn't even live there. He'd rented the place out to someone else and was collecting rent, right? Everything that went wrong with that situation was my fault. Go a couple years in the future where I've got my leases and I screen tenants, I have friends and family who can rent from me, but here's the lease. And it is binding just like it is with anybody else. Also, you know your friends or family, right? There are friends or family I would not rent to, but there are some that I would. And then I see somebody took back a message to make me lose sleep forever and ever. But there was a question from Mike and my chat moved. Oh, Mike, you do seller financing. Is it better to do the deal with the seller and then get the agents involved?
No, absolutely not. No, you don't. You never get the agents involved. If you are, so this is a great question because a lot of people don't understand exactly how seller financing works. And I hate to keep plugging my own channel, but I did a video on step-by-step from start to finish, how you do conduct a closing transaction, everything for seller financing. If me and Dion decide he wants to seller finance his house to me, we will never get real estate agents involved. We'll never get a real estate attorney involved. That's very expensive. What we do is we go down to the title company and we say to the title company, we want to buy and sell this house, and here are the terms that we've come up with. And maybe it's written down on a napkin. The title company will have pre-written templates that work in your jurisdiction for free, so long as you're closing with their title company. They will fill in all the information, all of your terms. They've got their own attorneys on staff that will look over it. They'll make sure that it gets done properly so they can get filed properly. Nobody's getting taken advantage of. You do not get the agents involved. You're not paying anybody any commissions. You're not paying anybody any fees. You're not paying any lawyers any fees. You go to the title company and you're just paying their fees for title search and history and insurance. That's it. They'll take care of everything. This is something that I learned the hard way because I paid for a seller finance contract from a real estate lawyer when I didn't need to. I could have just gone to a title company and they would have said, oh yeah, we got like 20 of these stock ones from the last 10 deals we did this month. Don't get an agent involved. Go to the title company and make friends.
No, and I totally agree. You should talk about your channel here too. The whole point of us is helping more people find our content. And since we are lumberjack landlord substitute teachers today, Josh says we're doing great, but watch out for spitwads. There is homework. Since we're the substitute teachers today, I'm putting in some homework. Yeah. Last night, I did a live on 12 pieces of advice that I've shared. And I asked people to tell me which piece of advice had the biggest impact on you. So if you can watch that video and let me know, because Tuesday, my live stream is going to be me talking about the comments and answers from that video.
Dion, you're such a tease, okay? Because you did that live stream and I like happened to be on my phone right as it popped up and I left you this heartfelt, loving comment, no response. I think I wrote something down in the bottom, no response, ignored. It was awful. You
put it in the live comments during a live stream on my phone. I don't know if you've done a live on your phone yet, but all of the comments come at the same time and they're all stacked on top of each other, so you can't read any one of them. It doesn't scroll like it does on the computer. So I say that during my lives. I say, after the live, leave a comment below, which you have had a response to.
Oh, I need to go back and look at it.
Ah, look at that.
Oh. Yeah, I'll be right back because I totally forgot something. I'll be right back 1 second.
Okay, we're good. I'm
Carry
gonna
on.
look through the rest of these. Yeah, Michael Diaz surprise live because the lumberjack landlord is doing the one rental at a time boot camp today. So me and Mike jumped in to do a live stream for the people who like to wake up on Sunday mornings and have a live stream. Here we are. Sorry, we're not as good looking as Matt. John Williams. Howdy, everyone. Howdy. Can one owner finance in 1031? Like if we said, I'll take the 10, 50, 40 product and 1031 the 60% into a new property. Yes and no. This is a kind of a detailed proposition you would run by your CPA to make sure that you have all of the data that you need for them to do this. How much money are you getting this year? That amount is what you can 1031. So you're going to get 50% because the lender is going to do 50% of the value. So the borrower borrows 50%, that goes to the seller. The buyer has 10% they bring to the table. So 60% is going to the seller now, and then some payments for that year come to the seller. The amount that you received this year would be the amount that you could 1031. And if you're doing the 1031 on your time frame earlier in the year than now, it's the end of the year, those payments might not matter. But it's only what you've received so far that you can 1031. You can't 1031 the future payments. So yes, you can. If a seller is willing to do a 1031, though, it's probably less likely that you're going to get them to do the seller financing for the 40% because they'd probably rather get you to do the full loan, take it all in, and have more buying options. But it is possible. All-night hider, I'm willing to admit Chester is way faster with the links. He is, but he's not here on a Sunday morning. So I appreciate your effort. E-commerce, what happened to Chester? His name is The Wealth Building Journey, and he's usually in the lives, but Sunday morning, and this is kind of a surprise live that he probably just didn't know about.
He famoosed us. All right, in honor of the lumberjack, I put on some flannel. I totally forgot.
Nice, there you go. And now you're set, just in case a picnic breaks out.
Exactly.
My brother wears flannel all the time, so they have no end of sarcasm coming from that. Financial Fighter says, in short, if you are actively managing your short-term rental and average stay is less than 7 days, you can offset your active income with losses. It's kind of qualifying for real estate professional status.
Ooh.
And if depreciation is factored in there on your portfolio, then it might have a bigger impact. So yeah, definitely talk to your CPA about that. And Ninja Vanish says, but not today. That is when the other guy can pay for his membership. Your John L. guy.
Hey, John L. Shout out to John L. John L., who I don't know if he's watching this or not, probably not because he hasn't commented, but he started an Airbnb about 1 month before me, and he's a follower of you and me. He's friends with me on Facebook, and he has been sharing with me all of his tips and tricks and all of the data and stats from his Airbnb, which I believe was in Vegas. And I feel bad that I forget where it was, but he has a very nice like luxury house, hot tub, all this stuff. And so we've been exchanging notes back and forth. So John L. is a big supporter of the channel, of the one rental at a time family, and definitely been helping me out with Airbnb. Thanks, buddy.
Nice. And I'm going to go through the questions. We'll probably be wrapping up here in like 10 minutes or so, ish. So we can get on about our Sundays, and I've got to go find a new hotel because I don't know if I mentioned this or not, and I hate to call anybody out by name, but True Hyatt in San Antonio sucks. Even when you get to the second room, because the first room was sucked even that much. Joseph, howdy. Montana is the Australia of America. Texas is bad, but Montana throws in winter, grizzlies, and moose to up the ante a little. That sounds about right. Does Montana get the hurricanes, the poisonous snakes? Yeah, I don't know. Brian Anderson, Mike, where do you get the cash to buy in an all-cash deal? You have a really good strategy that you've been repeating here.
Yeah, so I got another video on my channel called HELOC to buy rental properties. How you can use a home equity line of credit to buy rental properties. So first thing, in my market in Indiana, houses are really cheap. So that's very nice because I can just save up $20,000 like the deal I talked about earlier. I could just drop $20,000 from my regular job working some overtime. But I used a home equity line of credit with the equity that I built in my original duplex I bought 5 years ago. And I have used that HELOC to buy and do the BRRRR strategy on 1, 2, 3, and now my 4th rental property. I just keep using it, burring it out, using it, burring it out. It's a very powerful strategy. It is an advanced strategy. I don't recommend you start that way, but it could be right for you. If you want that video, check it out on my channel, HELOCs to buy rental properties, because there's some really good things you can do with it.
Talking about strategies that you don't want to start with, right, is buying all cash. It was my 8th property before I bought one all cash. That's not how I started. I definitely did. First investment property was 5% down. Right now, and as of November 18th, 2023, you could do 5% down on 4, 3, 2, or single family houses, right? Conventional loans, doesn't have to be FHA. A lot less restrictive than FHA. But if you're going to do all cash, I really like how you've done, you take your money, you buy something all cash, you now own it. It's like the reverse strategy. Now you go find a private lender, you back their loan out with the asset that you've already owned. You take that money, you deploy it into the next purchase.
Yep. That's my super secret strategy that I call the slow BRRRR method.
The slow BRRRR.
It's amazing. The problem with the BRRRR strategy is you got to do it like within 6 months, you got to do your cash out. So that's why I created the slow BRRRR strategy.
No, it's a brilliant strategy. The investor's getting a 10% return on their money. You've got a couple of exit strategies. Yeah, I haven't found a flaw in it other than don't start with it. Right? The amount of knowledge that you had, the portfolio you had in place, and the reserves you had to do this strategy. Yes. It's kind of like when on BiggerPockets the other day, David Green basically said, don't ever buy a turnkey rental because you can't add value. You can't force appreciation. You have like a laundry list of things. And the guest just quickly just said back, actually, a lot of my friends started with that way and they're very successful. She didn't like go, hey, you're wrong, I'm right. She just said, hey, a lot of my friends have started that way. Because when we're starting, the learning curve is part of the investing strategy. Like the things that we don't know. So it was actually kind of fun to see that in the video, which is ironic. So make sure everybody understands this. I'm a David Green fan. Right? I think he's relatable. He's worked in law enforcement. I think he has gone on to bigger things now, which is why the Real Estate Rookie show with Ashley and Tony on that you have to have done less than 10 deals to share on their channel. Like they're still talking to that new investor, but when you're watching some videos, it's meant for the person that has 20 rentals, has money to invest in a syndication, and now you're targeting different people. Rob, I saw an old video from Dion on a jet ski, so I had to go to out to get one. Now I don't have time to look for real estate. It's all Dion's fault. That was actually a jet ski that I rented when I was at Beth Traverso's vacation rental in Cle Elum, Washington. And on that video, I talked about the affordability index being broken. That's actually the title of the video. The affordability index is broken. Mike, this is from Jesse. Howdy. Okay. I will help you bring down BiggerPockets and pay some more. There you go.
Well, then you're going to really like the video that I made. I've been holding off for years doing a video because, in all fairness, I've applied to be on their show. I've tried to say, hey, I've got a different perspective, different points of views, or a chance I can come on and talk about it. Never gotten any traction. I've had people who are very successful and been on their show multiple times, even CC me on emails to producers, and they're like, oh yeah, we'll get back to you. Never hear back from them. And I've always maintained that they steal all of our ideas, because there's been multiple times where me and Matt or me and Dion have made a video, or even the REI Avengers, and I make this thumbnail with Matt, the lumberjack, Zuber, and Dion with their faces photoshopped onto the Avengers, like the Marvel's Avengers superheroes. And within 2 weeks, BiggerPockets did the exact same thing with their guys and called it the same. I was like, you are the worst. Anyways, whatever.
Seaburns. Do either of you have recommendations on flooring you should install? LVP, laminate, waterproof, resistant, type depend on room. So for me, the type doesn't depend on room. It depends on elevation. I put LVP or LVT in every room. No matter what, every room gets that. Stairs, I have carpet installed. It's less slippery. There are people who can do professional LVP installation on stairs, and it's probably just fine. But I live in Washington State, and feet are often wet. So I don't want slippery stairs. So I put carpet on stairs, but the rest is all LVP or LVT. So it can look like tile, it look like planks, doesn't matter. They're all water resistant. Nothing is waterproof, especially in Washington State. I don't buy a property if it has tenants in place and tear out the carpet and put in LVP. If a tenant is living there, I will wait until the tenant moves out to put in LVP. Unless the carpet is like over 7 or 8 years and the carpet is failing, and then I'll replace it one room at a time to get LVP in there. Don't put carpet in anything. And I used to like carpet when I was a homeowner or a renter. But as a landlord, and having seen what is underneath very clean carpet in a very clean house, I don't ever want to live or be anywhere where there is carpet again, because it's disgusting. Anything you would add to flooring there, Mike?
Nope. You did it. Great job.
Jerniel, howdy. Speaking of Arizona, in my market, average yield is negative cash flow. Would you do a deal that only has maybe 1 to 3% yield? Technically a great deal, but low yield overall. The goal is to beat the area average. And if the area average is 0 or negative, but you could find a positive, I probably would do a deal there. I might expand my market. I might look at different asset classes. I might track days on market and make offers significantly lower than what's listed until I found the deal that made the most sense. There is a point where maybe investing at a distance makes sense too, but that comes after house hacking. The more expensive the area you're in, the less yield you can get, the more important house hacking becomes. And here's the example, and not to pick on Mike, but if you live in the Seattle area and you could save $2,400 a month by house hacking, that's impactful. But if he actually lived in Gary, Indiana, where he could house hack and save $800 a month, it's not as impactful. T. Adams, I think you guys, Zuber and Lumberjack, help new people the best. Thank you. Appreciate that. Howdy, Red Berserker. T. Adams, title companies are the way to go. Yeah, no matter how you're doing your transaction, involve title, get title insurance. I've never seen that not be something I would want. Robert Fernelli, howdy. The only thing you're doing wrong as a substitute is I don't see "you will be offended" in the title. That is, we did miss that from Mike. I'd put a tombstone. How can you not be offended by a tombstone?
Section 8 tenants suck. You will be offended.
Right.
And we got to start calling everybody a piker. I don't know. These guys are a bunch of pikers. That's his classic insult.
Yeah. Mine is hoople heads. You don't have to know what that is. All-nighter.
Right.
I read that comment, Mike. It was great, except for when you're leaving your properties to the event that's not going to happen. Right. So, yeah, let's set that up. Let's get that in the will. We'll do vice versa. Chris, I want to change my answer to your question. The biggest thing I learned from Dion is to never get married. I saw that on there a couple of times. There was a couple of people. Yes, it is okay to be single and be happy. It's okay to be in a relationship and not be married. The problem comes in when people want to own each other. You can't be cheated on if you don't try to own somebody. How to demonetize your channel in 3, 2, 1.
That's why we do the lives on yours, and I won't let you do it on mine.
Right. All-nighter, how did I hear drive-by politics happen all the time in Tacoma? Picnics. Okay. That's in politics. I was going to say, there's no politics in Tacoma. It's everything's on one side. So they do actually. They happen on the slides in Ruston. Robert, agreed. Dion teaching me not to get married is the best advice he has given. Slows things down, not having 2 incomes or 4 times the expense. Sure. But real estate, but peace of mind that I won't lose everything in a divorce. My daughter just surprised me with breakfast all-nighter. Awesome.
Nice.
Joseph, howdy. Rattlers are everywhere in Montana. Okay, didn't know that. And the other year I lived in Billings, there was a tornado in August. It went from 80 degrees hot to hailstones larger than quarters in 10 minutes. Nice. T. Adams, you can call it the slow burr method. Yes, exactly. Except it's spelled slobber. You just say slobber. I like slobber. That's better. Matthew, Is it a bad idea to do a short-term rental for your first deal? What do you think the best choices would be for your first? The best choices for first, if you just want best, like on a spectrum, it's house hacking, right? But that's not an option for everybody. If you're going to do a short-term rental, to me, it could be your first, it could be your 15th. I don't think there's a time on when this makes more sense. But here's the warning that always comes anytime somebody talks about doing short-term rental, whether it is your first deal or your 17th deal. Make sure it would cash flow as a long-term rental or a midterm rental, so that you don't buy something that requires you to have short-term tenants for the income for it to make sense, or to even be cash flow positive, even if it had a bad yield, because something can change with legislation in a heartbeat and short-term rental goes away. So now you're stuck with something that is midterm or long-term and might lose value in that local market because people were buying based on short-term income. So it could be your first deal. I'm okay with that. There's a lot of education here on YouTube University. And but making sure that if you lose the ability to do short-term rentals, will it still be cash flow positive? I'm okay with it buying for the yield that comes from from short-term, if that's where the best yield is, as long as you don't go negative cash flow if you have to switch to mid or long-term rental. And then understand that the amount of work that it takes for a short-term rental is less than a midterm rental, but more than a long-term rental. So if you lose short-term and you go to midterm, it's going to be more work. But if you go to long-term, it's going to be less work. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind. And then T. Adams corrected it to slobber. I like slobber better. I'm sorry. I think we're going to, the mic, it's done. You have the slobber method. I can't wait to make the YouTube thumbnails for that, because I'm going to give me English Mastiff. Okay.
I don't think those thumbnails will be allowed on YouTube. Maybe some other websites.
Joseph, I don't miss waking up negative 25 without wind chill. Yep. Alyssa, so Montana's not that bad. Duplex Dave, howdy, partner. I say howdy to people in Texas. They say howdy back in Washington. At least they just look at me funny. Do you suggest targeting properties 60, 90 days on market, making ridiculous offers in this market? By the way, retirement from law enforcement has improved my stress level. Mike should do the same. I totally agree. I don't think you realize the stress you're under until it's gone.
Probably, yeah.
I think I've told you the story before. My daughter came to me about, I don't know, a year and a half after retiring, and she said, "I'm really glad you don't work in law enforcement anymore. You're just always in a better mood." I was like, "I thought I was always in a good mood." Nope. So that's what I did, Duplex Dave, is I watched days on market. And I don't think I would suggest 60 or 90 days. I think I would suggest learning what average days on market in where you invest market is, and then triple that. So in my market, most of the counties that I look at, 6 to 9 days is average. So 6, 7, 8, or 9. So not 69, 6 to 9 days was average days on market. So when I would see over 30 days, I would start watching properties. I started making 80% offers at 100 days, right? So once it was on a ridiculously long time, I started making those much more ridiculous offers. And I think we're going to be wrapping up here with these last couple of questions.
I don't know. Alyssa M is in the chat. And just for you guys, we've talked a lot about Zuber's event that's coming up February 17th and 18th, and how cool it's going to be able to meet all the people like the Lumberjack and Dion in person. But don't forget, there's a lot of superstars from the chat that have been around a long time. Financial Firefighter bought tickets. All Nighter Hider's going to be there, and Alyssa M has tickets. So if you want to meet the people from the chat that you talk with all the time, you need to buy tickets to come to the event in February. It's going to be a blast.
I think that's the best thing with the lives, is you get all the chat, like the comments that go back and forth, and other people that help. Sometimes they're in the same market. With Vegas, currently the plan is to be there days before the event and have some midnight Denny's meetings before the event. So for the people that are going to be in the area, there you go. And thanks everybody hanging out with us on a Sunday random live stream, filling in for Matt the Lumberjack Landlord. I forgot when checkout is for this place. It's probably an hour ago. Whatever. They're so unorganized they wouldn't know. The few people haven't just walked into the room. Simon, the uneducated economist, will be there. And here's I'm actually looking forward to seeing Sean Cannell. He lives up by us. He's up in Everett area. There are 2 things that he teaches on Think Media that he teaches, here's how you grow a YouTube channel. Those two things I use in real estate every single day. So actually at the event, I'm going to be sharing, these are the two things I learned from that guy who was also here talking today. So I'm looking forward to seeing him there too. I don't think people realize what he shares and how it can be applied to real estate. So it's going to be awesome. And remember, the last request I have is I made a live stream last night on what had the most impact out of these 12 things. Please watch the video and leave a comment on which of my 12 pieces of advice had the biggest impact on you. If it is something that wasn't of those 12, like don't get married, let me know in a comment, because Tuesday I'm going to be doing a live stream where I kind of go through those comments and I talk about the things that have had the biggest impact on people. And specifically, these are the things I try to share on my channel. And you can find Millennial Mike here on YouTube, Millennial Mike. He also is on One Rental at a Time, usually on Sundays when Zuber isn't doing his boot camp, making the videos where you react to the comments people leave on the One Rental at a Time channel. And we will see you all in person in Vegas, February 17th and 18th. Until our next video, thanks for coming to our Dion and Mike talk.